Ever spend, like, forever trying to code something that should be so simple? Just letting someone type into a box. But it turns into this whole thing.
Oh, tell me about it. It's like some kind of rite of passage for programmers.
Right. And you find out there's this whole system for that, and it's elegant. You're like, where have you been all my life? So to save everyone that pain, today we're doing a deep dive on Tkinter Entry widgets.
It's funny you say elegant because it might be elusive for something so essential. The entry widget, it's surprisingly straightforward.
So someone who's just starting out, what do they need to know to get this entry widget on the screen?
Just a few lines of code, really. You bring in Tkinter, create your main app window, and boom, tk.entry. It almost feels too easy.
And our source material even has this example. Adding a label, making the background yellow. Like, look, no complicated stuff.
Yeah. It shows how user-friendly Tkinter is. But here's the thing. All this, even just it showing you P, it depends on that main loop function.
Okay, main loop. Why is that so important? What's it doing behind the scenes?
Think of it like the engine of your GUI. Beautiful car, but without the engine, going nowhere. Main loop keeps it all running, responding to the user, making the magic happen.
Makes sense. You can have all the fancy stuff, but no engine, you're stuck. Speaking of fancy stuff, pretty input box is nice, but we got to actually USE what they type, right?
Exactly. Anyone can put a box on screen. Tkinter Entry widgets, the power is you retrieve that data, and it's ridiculously easy, the get method. That's all it takes.
So to be clear, we just do e1.get, and that grabs whatever the user typed. That's it.
That's it. And to clear it out for them, there's e1.delete. Good design is letting users fix mistakes easily.
Totally. But now I'm picturing a big form, tons of these entry fields. Clearing each one by hand would be a nightmare.
Thinking ahead, that's what we want. But don't worry, Tkinter's got this. That's where the win for children method comes in.
Okay, when fit children. Sounds a little intimidating, not gonna lie.
It's not so bad, promise. This basically lets you grab all your entry widgets. And once you've got them, simple loop clears them all out at once. Think like a reset button, boom, clean slate.
Reset button, so smart. Those little things make a huge difference for users.
For sure. And speaking of little things, let's talk customizing. The source material mentions all these attributes for styling, entry widgets, fonts, colors. You can even make it do that old school password thing with the asterisks.
Oh yeah, I saw that. It's almost dangerous how much you can tweak.
Well, hey, options are good, right? You can make it fit your app perfectly. Like, we've got big for background color, but then there's FG. Any guesses?
FG. Okay, I'm going to guess that's text color. Because, black background, black text, not so helpful.
Spot on. It's all about making the GUI intuitive. And then there's this one called Relief. Sounds kind of relaxing, doesn't it?
Right. Maybe Tkinter can code ME a spa day next. But seriously, what does Relief actually do?
This is where you change the border style of the widget. Sunken, raised, even flat if you're into that minimalist look.
So many choices. I'm
Yeah.
guessing that password masking example, that's the show attribute at work.
Exactly. With show, you control what actually shows up in that field. So for passwords, you just replace it with asterisks or whatever you want, really.
Essential for anything with sensitive data.
Mhm.
It's cool how we can make these widgets look right, but what about controlling what people type EE? I'm thinking validation, character limits, stuff like that.
Good thinking. Tkin's got you covered there, too. Remember we mentioned the validate attribute earlier?
Right, we kind of breeze past it. That's
Yep.
where things get really powerful, huh?
You could say that. Validate lets you trigger functions to check the input AS the user types. So make sure it's a valid email, prevent letters when you need numbers, all that good stuff. Makes it more robust, better user experience, the whole package.
That's next level. Okay, before we go too deep down that rabbit hole, I want to circle back to something else the source material talks about a lot. Stringvar. What is that, and why should our listeners care?
Stringvar. One of Tkinter's best tools, honestly. Think of it like a bridge between your entry widget and the rest of your app, a special variable that can dynamically update the text you see in the entry.
Okay, I think I'm following, but can you give me an example? How would I actually use this?
Let's say you've got an entry for the user's name. With Stringvar, you could have another part of the app that greets them by Y name, and it updates live as they type.
Wait, so like as they're typing, it's hello, Jay. Hello, Joe. Hello, John. That's wild.
Exactly. Super smooth, super interactive, and that's just one example. Dynamic updates, data binding, Stringvar opens up so many possibilities.
You're making Tkinter sound more powerful by the minute. I feel like we've covered so much, but I know there's still more to these entry widgets. What other advanced tricks do we have in store? So we've got dynamic updates, input validation. It's like Tkinter Entry widgets can do it all. But I get the feeling there's even more, judging
Uh-huh.
by this source material. What else is out there?
Oh yeah, we're just getting started. Like, you could have the text in the entry already selected when it gets focus. Small detail, but way smoother for the user.
Love those little touches. No more clicking and dragging to select everything.
Right. Or how about this? As they type, you could show a live count of how many characters they've entered. Especially for forms with limits, that's good feedback.
Ooh, yeah, character counting. I always
Yeah.
mean to add that, but
It's surprisingly easy with Tkinter. It's all about events. You bind the key release event, meaning each time they let go of a key, it triggers a function. That function calculates the count, updates a label, done.
so every key release, it grabs a text, counts, updates, slick.
Right. And Trinker's doing the hard work. You just define what happens on that event. Working smarter, not harder, as they say.
Love it. This whole deep dive has been awesome. We went from the basics all the way to some really cool advanced techniques.
Barely scratched the surface of what Tkinter Entry widgets can do, but you're on your way to becoming a pro.
I appreciate that. And listeners, don't worry. We've got all the code snippets we talked about in the show notes, plus more resources if you want to really go deep.
Definitely check those out. And as you start building your own stuff, think about this. How can you use these widgets to go beyond just collecting data? How do you make them a seamless, even enjoyable part of the user's experience?
That's something to think about. Taking your GUI design to the next level, one entry widget at a time. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.